Welcome to Magicians Talking Magic. Today on the podcast, I am joined by recent lead magician from Illusionarium in Toronto, Cameron Gibson. Cameron, thanks so much for joining me on today's podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's exciting.
So, lead magician at Illusionarium, that's a real deal, big title there.
Yeah, I know. It's it's definitely a step up from anything I've done before. So it's I feel the pressure of that myself for sure.
So what does that entail, being a lead magician on a? So for people that might not know about Illusionarium, if they've been under a magical rock for some reason and didn't hear about the show, an immersive magic experience in Toronto. What does that mean when you're the lead magician of a team like this?
Yeah, so I mean, the Toronto one has just closed its doors. We're moving it to hopefully tour the US and the world in a slightly different format. We can talk about that in a little minute. But from my point of view, it's been such a wild ride because it's such an amazing magical journey, and we have genuinely every type of magic conceivable within the show, from close-up magic to kind of parlor. We have like a Victorian kind of classical magician in there, all the way up to large scale, Vegas style illusions, with Jamie Allan's kind of signature technology spin on it as well. So for me, it's been a journey of basically coaching all of these magicians and also actors that we've hired in all these different disciplines of magic. So it's been amazing for me because, I have a background in a specific area of magic, but I've always, like a lot of magicians, loved every area and have a decent knowledge of every area. And it's a rare opportunity to use that knowledge across every single one of these different disciplines, which has been amazing.
Now, your background, you have the strangest of Canadian accents that I've ever heard.
Yes. Well, my friends tell me that they can hear the Canadian in my accent, and I say for sure and stuff now as well. So yes.
But your background, I remember when I first met you at Illusionarium, when we did the sneak peek back in April, you were describing what you do. You're a public speaker. You're a little bit of a coach and everything.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Edinburgh in Scotland, and I grew up there, and I moved to Glasgow when I was 18 for university. So I studied mechanical design engineering at university. I got a few years into that, was using magic to pay for beer money, I guess, like a lot of people do. And at the end of university, decided that I loved it so much that I wanted to stick at magic rather than become an engineer. And like a lot of magicians, obviously my parents were thrilled, leaving that stable career path behind. So I ended up sort of being a full-time close-up wedding magician for a while. And then I got a job with a company called Tree of Knowledge as a professional speaker. So I went around businesses and schools talking about all sorts of stuff. And I incorporated a tiny bit of magic in there, like a very, very tiny bit, because really we wanted it to be fun and entertaining on its own. And I guess that's where I learned to stand up for myself as an entertainer rather than rely on the magic. So I did that for about 2.5, 3 years, I think. The whole time that I was performing magic on stage, I was performing mainly stage mentalism at that time. And then I got this opportunity to move to Toronto in the middle of the pandemic, and I couldn't turn it down. So yeah, it's been an odd journey to get here. Yeah.
How does that opportunity come your way? Because I remember when I saw the Illusionarium casting things. I mean, I'm from the Toronto area, so I saw them posted, "Hey, Toronto magicians, you're all the way over in Scotland." How does that happen for you?
Yeah, so I actually I planned to move to Canada, to Toronto, before Illusionarium was ever a thing, and I had my visa. I was in like the last stage of getting my kind of 2-year working visa for Canada. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why I wanted to move here in the first place. But then the pandemic hit and all of that kind of went out the window, because I was going to come here for fun and to just start from the ground zero. Like my plan originally was to move to Toronto, get a job in a bar, and then just start doing sort of cabaret gigs or these like small gigs and slowly build a profile like that. Over a number of years. And I kind of was ready to start from scratch in that sense. Then the pandemic happened and I couldn't do that. And then I saw Jamie Allan posted in the members of the Magic Circle Facebook group, like calling all local Toronto magicians, if you know anyone, let us know. And a bunch of my friends that knew that I was planning to move to Canada sort of started tagging me in this thing. And I just sort of went, what the heck? And just applied to the casting call. And it was my literal ticket to Canada.
What? Why Toronto? What's made you want to come to Toronto, to Canada, to start a new career over here?
Yeah, so in Scotland especially, I would say we have an amazing live entertainment scene, especially the cabaret scene is great. But it's quite a small place. The population of the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, is bigger than the population of all of Scotland. So we do have an incredible cabaret scene in Scotland. But it got to the point where I was doing a lot of these shows. I was one of the residents at a place called Wild Cabaret. So there I was doing 5 shows every weekend. Um, I was doing all the kind of more independent cabaret shows, but those places, they always want like a rotating cast. So maybe I would do each one of them twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. Um, and yeah, so it got to the point where I was doing the same sort of gigs all over again, over and over again. The Edinburgh Festival happens every year as well, and I was always doing a show there, but I'd never quite taken the financial leap to do like a massive venue there. And so I kind of just wanted to move somewhere where there was, which was bigger, but not too much bigger. So there was like a next step without having to go to these massive sort of 1,200, 1,500 seater theaters. And yeah, I think sometimes you have to kind of take these matters into your own hands if you want to get anywhere. So I kind of just did. And again, I was planning to move here and start from scratch. Like I had no expectations. I was planning to get a bar job, and just work my way up. But then this opportunity came along, and it's been a little bit. I guess you could call it destiny.
I know that you started a YouTube channel, and on TikTok you were sharing all your new Canadian experiences, how all the Canadian culture things, and even Tim Hortons kind of recognized you too, right?
Yeah, it's been wild actually. I mean, I think like a lot of people and a lot of especially entertainers at the start of lockdown, everyone learned how to produce their own stuff, right? Like how to use a camera, how to produce like Zoom shows or videos. So I started a YouTube channel for fun, and it's doing pretty well. The consistency is the hard thing. If anyone's ever made any content online, you'll know it's hard to. The biggest key is to be consistent. So the YouTube channel has kind of fallen by the wayside, but I think I've got just over 1,000 subscribers in almost exactly a year. And then, yeah, TikTok, I started off with magic, but then if anyone's ever tried to make magic videos, you know that they take forever because you have to think of something, you have to practice it, you then have to film it 1 billion times so that you don't flash for even one frame. And then so I started doing all this stuff about my observations of Canadian people. And yeah, I got sponsored by Tim Hortons, which was a real, I think when you get sponsored by Tim Hortons, you can officially consider yourself Canadian.
It's like getting a key to the country, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So for you, what's been the biggest observation, the most unique quirk about Canadians? I'm always interested to hear because I talk to a lot of American magicians and things too.
Yeah, I mean, I have loads. I think the stereotype of Canadians being very polite and friendly is absolutely true. You guys say sorry all the time. I've since learned there's different types of sorry. So the word sorry doesn't just mean sorry. It means like there's like 12 different meanings for it. I think so. Whenever I travel to the States, people are taken aback by my use of like curse words and swear words. I personally believe that the Scottish accent was designed to be the best accent for swearing in the world. So we use them casually and very endearingly sometimes as well. In the States, you get looked at as if like you've just committed a crime. Here, not so much, but I get people like I can tell that they're questioning it and they're like, are you okay? But then I think they just accept it for the fact that I'm foreign. So I enjoy that part of living here, definitely. And yeah, just some of your phrases are great. I don't know, I'm trying to think of some. Like obviously like for sure, the yeah, no, yeah thing. I don't know. So if you're not Canadian, Canadians will say yeah, no, which means no. Am I correct? Is this right?
Sure.
And no, yeah, which means yeah. So they'll be like, oh, yeah, no. And then for 3 months, I'm sitting here and people are going like, yeah, no. And I'm like, is it yeah or is it no?
Oh, I didn't totally understand what you were saying there at first, and I totally get it.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know. Like an example would be if someone's trying to, converse with you, or they, no. Yeah,
no. Yeah, no. Yeah, absolutely. I know.
I think that's my favorite one. Yeah.
That's so hilarious. Bringing it back to the magic and back to Illusionarium, you got to work with some incredibly top talent from magic and outside of magic too. You must have learned an incredible amount because your background is mentalism, professional speaking. Even though you're at this lead magician role, you're obviously still learning a ton at the same time.
Oh, like unbelievable amounts. I mean, going back to the very beginning, we had Holly England and Harry de Cruz on board. So I've known Harry for a good while, but it was great to finally actually work with him on something. And Holly was our choreographer for the first run of when we were supposed to open at the first play in the first place. And that was amazing. I don't have a huge amount of experience within the theater world because I'm kind of from the cabaret world and the public speaking world. So getting to work with people who know exactly what they're doing with bigger theater productions, even as far as like our kind of resident director, Richard Azunian, who's a very well known theater director in Canada, and I think even across the world, it's fair to say. Learning so much from people like that, and also some of the other magicians. You know, I learned how to do a full like 10-minute stage illusion show with 4 big box illusions, and I've worked on kind of shows with them before, but I've never pushed one on stage. I've never like got inside one of them. So it's been absolutely incredible. And then to work with Jamie and his kind of right hand man Tommy Bond has been amazing as well. Because I'm a massive tech nerd. You know, I studied engineering. I love my tech. I love my innovation and using technology in order to create magic. So getting to do that has been like an unbelievable experience for me so far as well.
From now that how many shows did you do at Illusionarium?
Oh, I think honestly, I should find out the number. I think personally, I'll be in the range of about 1,000 shows. I think, and I think possibly 1,500 to 1,800 shows total were done over a 2.5-month period. So I think it's fair to say I'm probably one of the people who's performed the floating table the most times in the entire world now. If I never see one of those again, it'll be too soon. Great trick. I love it, but
just let it float away.
Just let it float away. Yeah,
just let it float away. Are you going to take some new things? Because you were a mentalist before. Do you find your magic perspective has changed now? Are you adding some new things into the show that maybe aren't mentalism? Or have you just kind of re-engineered now the way you approach your show?
I mean, so for me, I loved mentalism before. And if I'm honest, there's a few reasons I got into mentalism. One of them was because I was never the strongest performer on stage. And I found that mentalism allowed the space, because there's less method involved, I guess. There is method, but it's in other places. It's not necessarily when you're doing the trick. It allows more space to practice the performing side of it. So I'm quite young, so I'm 27. I'm very much at the start of my magic career, in my own opinion. And there's definitely area for me to move more. I'm considering moving back more into magic, definitely. And even I just worked on a new routine last week for my own sets, which is a needle swallow, which is obviously more on the magic side of things. It's certainly not mentalism, but I think it could fit within a mentalism show quite nicely if you pitch it right. So that's what I've been working on most recently, and that is definitely as a direct result of working with all these magicians and seeing the impact that's more visual and more magic rather than mentalism can have. So yeah, definitely.
When you work on a team, obviously with a bunch of magicians, and I imagine this is a lot of other performers' thoughts too, that you're dealing with a lot of different egos and characters. How did you find, I mean, now that you're at the other end of the whole thing, how did you find as a team you managed all those kind of personalities? Was it an easy process? Were there challenges that you had to go through? Because you're also kind of a little bit of a professional coach too. So
yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that has really helped me in the fact that I got this lead magician role amongst the team is that I have worked in other industries other than just magic. And a lot of magicians, you know, we all work for ourselves, generally speaking. But I worked in the hospitality industry for 4 years through university. I was a bar manager, for example. So I have that experience managing people.
Sure.
I then worked as a speaker. So I have that experience kind of entertaining on stage, and it doesn't matter without magic. So forgetting just the theater of stuff and making stuff fun and interesting. And then obviously I have the magic knowledge. So that's helped a lot. And I think that, yes, I mean, there has been difficulties, don't get me wrong. And I think my personal opinion is that most of those difficulties came from the fact that magicians tend to work for themselves. So they don't tend to have to answer to anyone else. So they don't tend to have to work with directors or people that are above them, and maybe resign themselves to the fact that there's someone on that team that has more knowledge in that field than you do. And you just have to kind of sometimes kind of shut up and listen to them, right? And I think, I'm certain there's so many magicians that have never had a job that isn't being a magician in their life. They've never worked in a bar or a restaurant, or they've never worked where they're just told to do something and have to just kind of do it for no other reason than the person that told you to do it told you to do it. So that's been tough. And one of the biggest things that Jamie was concerned with this, and also I think Jamie produces a lot of cruise ship shows where other performers go and do them. It's just the consistency as well, because this show was running, for there'd be sort of 2 or 3 performers doing each show within even one day. So to make sure that it was consistent, that every audience got to see as close to the same show as possible, was a real challenge, especially when each room had its own feel, its own kind of style, and its own goal in terms of entertainment as well. So yeah, it's been tough. I think it's, by the end of it, we found a really good cast of people who were all working together to pull off this kind of overall vision. But this is a brand new kind of idea. It's a brand new project. So no one really knew what it was going to be when we first opened, and it's kind of evolved into something different and new, and something that we're happy with and proud of now.
And it was evolving also throughout the pandemic too. I remember when we talked in April, it was one thing, and then it kind of changed a little. Only like there were tweaks and modifications to the whole thing, and rooms were added too. You were able to add extra experiences as well.
Yeah, I mean, so we were meant to open in December. We didn't end up opening until July because of coronavirus restrictions. But we didn't just sit down and wait for that time. In that time, we added a whole new room, which I'm allowed to talk about now. We had a big, I know, we called it the secret chamber, and we weren't allowed to talk about it for months because it was this whole marketing ploy. But now it's out in the open, so it's great. But we constructed, or Greg Fruin actually constructed for us, a massive water tank. It's an incredible thing. It's lit up. It's got bubbles in it with a cage above it, and a performer would be lowered into it, handcuffed and leg cuffed, and they'd have to pick the locks underwater, and they held their breath for between 2.5 to 3 minutes while doing it. And you get to see this unbelievably close. Like, the closest person to this water tank is maybe 6-7 feet away from the tank. Which you would never get to see. If you go to see someone do an escape in a theater, the front row is at least, I don't know, 20 feet away, at least.
But the room itself was a totally immersive. It felt like you were in some sort of offshoot in a subway alley with graffiti and rustic old benches and screwed up TVs.
It looked like I think someone described it as like a scene from Saw.
Yeah.
Saw bathroom. And actually, I remember when we first got our art people, our painters and everything to come in and decorate the whole room. Because the idea of it being immersive, the stage or the set, it's like you walk into a movie set, effectively. You walk into a room and you are in that thing. It's all around you. It's not just a stage and a proscenium. It's like the whole surroundings. And so after they finished painting this room, we walked a couple of our cleaners in, and we're like, we need to get this ready. And they looked at us as if we were absolutely mad. It's like we were crazy. Because it looked that good. It looked just so real and so immersive. And yes, it was amazing. So we added that during the pandemic. We also added a bullet catch routine to our first room within the last month of opening, which we're going to be taking with us on tour. So that was fun to add in. And yeah, we just added some other tricks and illusions. And it also evolved from a completely silent show when we first started. Because of restrictions, we actually opened it as an exhibit rather than a performance. And that meant we had to follow slightly different rules, but it meant that we could open it slightly earlier. One of the rules was that none of the performers were allowed to speak, which presented its own challenges, its own massive challenges, because then the magic has to speak for itself. You can't, you can't rely on the presentation of it to carry it. And then we got the opportunity to turn it into a speaking act later on, which was great. But again, new challenges. Every time we changed something, there was new challenges came up. But yeah, it's in a place now where we were all proud of it when it closed. Very proud.
Did you, in the end, did out of all of the things, two favorites? Did you have a favorite room and experience in the end? Because I know when we talked to you in April, you had one at that time, but I wonder if it's changed. And then, do you have a favorite effect? Because you got to perform so many different things. Was there a
Yeah.
trick? And it might have even been because I know there was the VIP experience where you got to share your own magic too. Was there something that you just always looked forward to? Like, I can't wait to get to do this one again.
Yeah, I mean, so my favorite room, I think, by the end was still the secret chamber, the one with the water escape, because I just think that's so unique and it's like nothing else I believe that's ever been done in the world, and it's such a great experience. A close second though would come the Palais Royale, which is where we added the bullet catch, because those two rooms were just so real and so like yeah, you could just feel the energy of the audience just the entire time. Personally, I love performing the Evolution show, so the big illusion show. Um, because that's something so new to me and so different. And I've also never worked with an assistant or a partner on stage. So getting to work with someone else and perform a show together was great fun. Um, but that being said, the VIP room was always lovely. It was lovely to get a chance to perform your own material again, because again, it's been so long since anyone has really managed to. I know stuff's obviously opening up now, but at the time, just to get to perform your own material. And for me, I had to edit that massively because mentalism doesn't really work socially distanced. It can, but it's hard. So I opted to make my stuff a bit more visual. So I learned which I love now, and I'm going to keep doing it. An amazing chop cup routine with the help from my good friend Mark James. I I learned what else did I do? I did a multiple selection routine, which I love as well. Um, so yeah, I mean the whole thing. It's just like so much magic, so many different types of magic. Every day was different, which is great.
So the show is now transitioning. It's closed in Toronto. It's now moving to Chicago, but in kind of a different format. Are you
Yeah,
able to kind of give us a little exclusive on the differences that we might see from
yeah, of
Illusionarium to the
course.
new version?
So the first obvious difference is that we're changing the name, so it's going to be called Magic Immersive, and the Illusionarium is going to be within that, and that's just because we now have a magic bar downstairs as well. So it's going to be kind of open to the public, but you can you go up if you buy the tickets to go upstairs to the Illusionarium. But in terms of the Illusionarium show itself, we're changing a whole bunch of the content. We've got a whole bunch of new illusions ordered that are coming into it. It's going to be sort of twice the size. And instead of a walkthrough experience, which is what Illusionarium currently is going to be much more of a show in terms of the audience stays in one place for 45 minutes or for the hour show, however long it is going to end up being. But the show happens all around you. So it's still an immersive experience. It's just immersive in a very different way. To be entirely honest with you, it's changing all the time at the moment, and the builders and set designers and everything are in there constructing it as we speak. I'm not flying to Chicago till this weekend, so I don't know 100% what to expect. But yeah, in terms of the magic, we're adding even more magic to it. It's going to be bigger and better. Some of the illusions that we have ordered are uh, very unique, and yeah, and we're also adding some more like kind of classic magic as well. Some more kind of sleight of hand based stuff, and yeah, it's going to be a really interesting show.
Now that you are Canadian and you've been given the key to the country,
Of
and
course, by Tim Hortons.
and you come from Scotland too. On our Discord, we sometimes carry around. I have this perception. I don't know if it's true, but now I can talk to you about this. Do you find that the audiences perceive and accept magic differently? Like I feel almost in the UK, there's way more acceptance for magic when it comes to weddings and things like that. And here, it's much more of a corporate audience. Unless you're putting on your own show, you're full four walling something, or you're appearing at a comedy room or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. My experience is that the markets are very different in the UK and as far as I can tell, North America. But I can only really speak to Canada, but I believe Canada and North America and the States are kind of similar in their markets. Um, Wedding magic in the UK is huge. You kind of like I personally don't love doing close-up magic. I enjoy learning it for myself. I think of myself as more of like a hobbyist close-up magic. Although I do genuinely love it. I never loved doing weddings, but it was just too good a market to pass up, I think. I was always more of a stage performer, and I think here there is a bigger market for corporates and also kind of college shows and things like that as well, which that doesn't exist in the UK almost at all. Occasionally you might do a gig at a university, but I don't remember the last time I did one, and I don't remember the last time I heard one of my friends talk about one. So the market's massively different in that respect too. The private gigs I've done since I moved here have almost all been corporate gigs as well. Which is great for me as well, because that's the audience that I'm used to. You know, I want to go on stage and do my 20 minutes or do my half an hour or host the event, and not do the same 8 minutes of magic 400 times in 2 hours. It's just, and you know, all power to the people that do that. I think it's a great way to showcase magic. It's just not personally for me. So another one of the reasons that I wanted to move across the pond is just there is a different market, and the way that audiences receive magic as well, I think is massively different. You know, the UK especially, depending where you go, can be a little bit more reserved, and they're more interested in, I guess, the art of theatre, which is more like they're interested in the storytelling, and of course that interest exists here as well. But you don't get the same reactions as you do in Canada or North America. Everyone here is a bit more confident and able to show their appreciation. I think you get a polite clap back home, depending where you are. In Glasgow, where I lived for about 10 years, it's kind of the opposite. They take the kind of American approach of just going crazy and hugging you, and you're telling you they're your best friend or a wizard or whatever you like. But yeah, it's been fun to see that difference. Yeah, but I think because I've been so saturated with the Illusionarium stuff and just working so hard on that, I've not really had enough experience within the private market to be able to talk to it. But yeah, I think that's my experience for sure.
How did you find the audiences were for Illusionarium?
Massively mixed. It depended, I found, on the time of day, the time of week, and also in terms of the demographic that we attracted, and also the reactions as well. So, you know, Sunday mornings was all families, kids, I think loads of grandparents as well. So a slightly older crowd. But if you went like a Friday or a Saturday evening after 7 p.m., between 7 and sort of 9:30, it was all younger people and couples. And the nice thing about Illusionarium is that every room had a show starting every 15 minutes. So if you had a bad audience, usually with a show, you have to deal with that audience for like an hour and a half, right? Or however long your show is. But with this, 8 minutes later, they're off to the next room and you're like, see you later. And you get to start again, which was great. But sometimes you just did get, you know, like you always do, you just get an audience that just aren't there for it for whatever reason it might be. And I know you've been performing a whole bunch since stuff's got back, but I don't know if you've felt this feeling of people not kind of remembering how to act within live performance, right?
Not respect, like, yeah, everyone, they don't, the dynamic, it's almost like you have to Jeff McBride everyone again. And
yeah.
When you think about all those lessons that you learn in things like in Ken Weber's book or anything like that, you very much need to direct the audiences again to applaud. I remember the other night I came out, did a walkout, and like flat. So the next night I did it, I encouraged the audience, and we got it up there and everything like that. But understanding that relationship has been a big lesson from going back to virtual into live again. It's so bizarre.
It's 2 years of Netflix, and no one claps at the end of a good bit of Netflix, right? But when we designed the show, or when Jamie designed the show originally, because it was going to be silent, it was intentionally designed so that there wasn't any gaps for applause, so that if people wanted to applaud, they could, but if they didn't, it wouldn't be awkward. So it would it's all run on QLabs, it's all automated, so it would kind of steamroll that silence if there was one, but it left enough space for applause if they wanted to, which worked really well for the most part. It meant that, again, if you have an awkward audience, you're not just standing there in an applause queue for 10 minutes with nothing. But yeah, it's just been and then once we could start to speak again, we really started to kind of coach the audience and how to react and just tell them what you want from them. And
can you share, were there any wild mishaps or unique stories that happened backstage during, I mean, you have a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, well, with a show like that, with so many moving parts, there was inevitably stuff went wrong all the time. Thankfully, most of it was pretty minor. But, we had, I think it's fair to say, every single prop, kind of broke at some point. Some during performances, some not. The biggest mishap that I had, we used Jamie's illusion Izag, which is like a small version of his... I've forgotten what it's called, but it's basically like a zigzag illusion, but with TV screens on the front. It looks great. And we must have used that illusion, as I said, 1,500 times in performance. We ended up doing 6 months of rehearsal, so probably another 800, 900 times in rehearsal. So that illusion has got used more in the past 6 months than I think any other illusion would ever be used in its lifetime. And so we had to replace bits and pieces here and there. So I was doing one show, and one of the TVs, the top TV closed fine, but the bottom TV didn't slide on its railings. So I'm standing there in costume, and I know the music's coming up. The cue for the assistant to get out of the trap comes, and I'm just thinking that this whole audience is going to see. And also, we have lights inside the box, so it's not even dark in there. It's like lit up. There's like LED strips in there. So this whole audience is just going to see this method. So I just start shouting. We're wearing masks on stage as well. So I just start shouting, "Stay in the box, stay in the box." And we have this cape as well on at this point. So I put the cape like up in front of the door, and I'm like, "Go, go, 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 go." And I just hear scrambling, and I open it, and I'm just like a single bead of sweat dripping down. So that was probably the scariest moment for me. We had loads of things go wrong over the 6 months, but in the scale of the number of shows we did, nothing show critical. A lot of floating tables ceased to float mid-float as well. That's a lot. We went through, I think by the end of that run, we went through half a dozen floating tables at least.
Really?
I repaired them all over. Oh yeah, we went through a lot. Some of them were user error. Some of them were not. But we had this running joke. One of our floating tables, a Lysander floating table, by the end of the run, one of our carpenters, a guy called Cameron Harry, who's an incredible guy, had literally remade this entire table from 3D printed parts, foam core, all sorts, and it weighed about 3 times as much as the original did. And the only original part by the end was the tabletop and the gimmick. And the problem was that because all this weight was on this tabletop and the gimmick is obviously inside the tabletop, the gimmick started to push through the wood of the tabletop, and that was the final straw for that one. It was actually me that was floating it when it finally, and I cannot understate this enough, exploded in midair. Like just wood everywhere, like crashed to the ground, the leg snapped, and it's the penultimate trick of that room. So I'm just sort of standing there like, you just can't recover from that. It's clearly bow and disappear.
That's amazing. I've never heard of an exploding floating table before, but classic philosophical question too. Is it still the same table if it has all these new parts?
This is the thing. People are like, "Oh, it's an original Lysander." And we're like, well, it was. It was once upon a time. It looked the same. It looked identical. But yeah, that's my new release for 2022, the exploding floating table.
If you had finished with wizard hands, it would have been perfect.
Yeah,
it would have been perfect. Just to wrap up this episode, you have, I think everyone in Team Illusionarium has probably learned the most when it comes to magic over the pandemic, because you were all doing virtual shows, your own shows. You saw the entire cast doing their own things outside of Illusionarium and then performing at Illusionarium the whole time. If you could narrow it down to kind of one phrase, one word, what would be your biggest takeaway from the experience that you're always going to hold on to and maybe like apply to any other creative project you going forward?
I would definitely say, if it's going to be one word, I would say like diversity or diversify. And I think to just expand on that, just learn as much as you can. And I think that's the one thing that I think done quite well at this pandemic is just learning so much from so many different areas. You know, I picked up a camera for the first time. I'm now into photography and I make videos. I started working with illusions. I've never done that before. I think just the more you can learn from the more people do different things to you, you can learn both what to do in like those things, and also you can learn what not to do as well. You can learn so much from just talking to more people, and I guess also part of that is kind of checking your ego as well, and understanding that there is other people that are just better at these things than you, and rather than getting defensive about that, learn from them, like soak up all that knowledge. And I've been so grateful to get to work with other close-up magicians, illusionists, directors. I've worked with Jason Hand, the lighting designer. I've learned so much from him, not in terms of the technical side of it, but in terms of his thinking. And he's lit some incredible musicals and things like that. And even like our costume designer, Sean, I've learned stuff from him in the way that he thinks, and just surround yourself with as many different people as you can and different artists that don't just do the thing that you do, because we all know enough magic. We all know lots of magic. We all know how to learn magic, but what you can't learn from other magicians, what you can, but maybe not so well, is everything else. And it's everything else that makes you a better performer.
Awesome. Cameron, thank you so much for being on this week's episode of Magicians Talking Magic.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, so at the end, I don't know if you know, but we meow. Are you willing to meow?
Of course, always.
Okay.
Practicing.
Meow. Nice.